Welcome back to the Deep Dive. We're your focus tool, really helping you get to grips with complex topics by analyzing key sources.
That's the goal. Clear insight straight from the material.
And today, well, it's an interesting one. We're basing our entire deep dive on just the title of a source.
Right. The source is listed as excerpts from Teenage Fear of Missing Out,
Exactly. And the specific subject flag is FOMO among teenagers.
which, sounds simple, but that title alone tells you something important is going on. It's not just a trending term anymore.
No, it's become serious enough for dedicated research. So our mission today isn't about the text itself, which we don't have, but about unpacking the significance packed into just those few words. FOMO among teenagers.
Why this specific anxiety? Why this specific age group? What makes this combination worthy of study?
Yeah, and to really get that, we need to think about the digital world teens live in. It's like a permanent performance stage, wouldn't you say?
That's a great way to put it. A stage that's always on, amplifying that fear of missing out, FOMO.
And we assume you listening know FOMO stands for fear of missing out. That's sort of background anxiety.
That maybe others are having, much better, more rewarding experiences than you are.
But the key here, especially with this title, is how that fear works when you combine it specifically with adolescence.
Right. It's the mechanism that matters.
So let's nail that down, the demographic. Why teenagers? What is it about that specific life stage?
Well, it comes down to developmental psychology, really. Adolescence is this period of, well, they call it identity moratorium. They're figuring out who they are.
Trying things on for size, seeing where they fit in.
Exactly. And crucially, they're often looking outside themselves for validation. Peer approval is huge. Their self-worth can be really tied to what others think.
Is that where social comparison theory comes in? I know that's often mentioned.
Precisely. The theory basically says we figure out our own value socially and personally by comparing ourselves to others. And teenagers, they're constantly doing what we call upward social comparison. They look at peers they see as, more popular, doing cooler things, having more fun.
And the digital stage, the phone, social media makes that comparison constant. It's not just at school anymore.
It's relentless, 24/7. Every scroll, every notification, it's potentially more evidence that they're somehow lacking, that they're missing out. It feeds that perceived inadequacy.
So the technology isn't creating the need for validation.
No, that's inherent to the age, to some
Or
extent.
it's turning the search for it into something, well, almost pathological, like an endless feedback loop.
That's a good way to put it. And, something interesting often highlighted in research around this is the difference between active posting and passive scrolling.
Right, I've heard that distinction. Active posting is when you're actually putting stuff out there, liking, commenting.
Yeah, and that can maybe counterintuitively sometimes give you little boosts, little dopamine hits, reinforce a sense of connection, even if it's superficial.
But most of the time spent isn't active, is it? It's just scrolling.
Exactly. Passive consumption, just looking. And that's often where the real kind of toxicity lies.
How so?
Because when you're passively scrolling, you're just observing. You're fueling that upward comparison, constantly taking in curated images of others' lives, but you're not interacting. You don't get any sense of agency or real connection from it. And study after study shows a strong link between higher passive consumption and increased feelings of loneliness, depressive symptoms, and, intense FOMO.
So you have a teenager, maybe already feeling a bit insecure, just sitting there watching this endless polished feed of everyone else's seemingly perfect moments.
It's not even about missing one specific party anymore. It's the perception they're missing out on this flawless, constantly amazing life that everyone else seems to have.
And that perception, for a teenager, feels huge, almost existential.
It really can. Missing out doesn't feel minor. It can feel like missing some crucial piece needed to build their identity successfully. The stakes feel incredibly high to them.
Okay, so let's tie those two threads together now. You've got the fear, the FOMO, and you've got the specific group, teenagers. When a study focuses on that combination, FOMO, among teenagers, what does that imply? What's the significance?
It implies the consequences are probably pretty severe. We're moving beyond just, normal teenage angst or disappointment.
Into something more clinical.
Potentially, yes. Researching this specific intersection suggests we need to measure real, concrete impacts on mental health, maybe even behavior. It's not just about feeling a bit left out. It could be linked to more serious issues.
Can you give some examples? What kind of impacts would a study like this actually try to measure?
Sure. One really common one is sleep deprivation.
Ah, the late night scrolling.
Definitely. That compulsion to keep checking, driven by the anxiety of missing something important, means phones in bed, disrupted sleep. And we know poor sleep just makes anxiety and depression worse.
It's a vicious cycle then. The fear leads to checking, checking hurts sleep, bad sleep worsens the mood.
Precisely. A nasty feedback loop. Researchers would also look at things like generalized anxiety levels, self-esteem issues, seeing if they correlate strongly with this chronic digital comparison.
Makes sense.
And beyond mental health, maybe even risky behaviors.
How so?
Well, if the pressure to be seen, to be included, is intense enough that fear of social death, basically teenagers might overcommit themselves, stretch themselves too thin, maybe even do things they wouldn't normally choose, things that could be risky.
Just to make sure they have a visible place on that permanent performance stage.
Exactly, to avoid being excluded.
I definitely see the urgency now, but let me push back a little bit here. We're saying the phone, the tech, is the delivery mechanism, right?
Yes, it amplifies and accelerates it.
But if we took the phone away, entirely hypothetically, does that underlying teenage need for validation, that social comparison drive, just vanish? Or is the phone maybe just the latest, most potent symptom of a deeper issue about how we structure belonging for young people?
That's a really important question, a critical one. And no, the underlying psychology, that external locus of control often seen in adolescents, where they look outside for validation, that wouldn't just disappear.
They'd find other ways to compare.
Probably. Maybe through fashion or sports or grades, whatever, is valued in their immediate environment. But, and this is key, the phone's power is unique.
In what way?
Its ability to document and broadcast exclusion instantly, continuously, and across huge networks. Older forms of comparison didn't have that reach or immediacy. It really does ramp up the pressure exponentially.
Okay, so that brings us to the so what. Why does it matter that there's formal research with a title like Teenage Fear of Missing Out?
It matters because it's a formal acknowledgement. It says that this digital environment isn't just some side activity, it's fundamentally changed the landscape of growing up. Researchers are treating this FOMO not as just a phase, but as a structured, significant stressor impacting development.
It forces us to see it seriously.
Yes. And it forces us to think about surveillance culture, but from the inside out. Teenagers aren't just passively being watched. They're caught in this loop of watching each other, judging, performing, being judged. Research gives us the tools to understand and maybe start to address this new reality.
Now, this isn't just about understanding teenagers, is it? Let's bring it back to you, the listener. Even if your own teenage years are long gone, why should understanding this specific phenomenon, teenage FOMO, matter to you now?
Well, because the habits, the anxieties, the mechanisms of comparison forged in those years, they don't just vanish when you turn 20. They often just change shape.
How do you mean?
Think about it. Do you find yourself compulsively checking work emails late at night? Or scrolling through social media comparing your house, your vacation, your parenting, your career path to these perfectly curated online versions?
Guilty as charged sometimes.
That's the adult echo of teenage FOMO. The same underlying mechanisms are often at play. That teenage experience was kind of the training ground for how our culture now deals with performance and visibility online.
So, studying teenage FOMO gives us a lens on our broader culture. How we all define success and inclusion now in this hyper-visible age, it makes you wonder, are we all just performing on a slightly bigger stage?
I think in many ways, yes. Which leads us back to the title itself and maybe the most profound question it raises.
Okay.
If research has to be dedicated to studying the fear of missing out in teenagers, what does that imply about the things that should be protecting them? What's missing in their offline lives?
You mean what essential needs or social structures might be deficient?
Exactly. Does it suggest that the traditional anchors family, maybe school, the local community, aren't providing a strong enough sense of real, unconditional belonging?
So they're pushed to seek it online in that much more volatile, performative space.
It certainly raises the question. If the dominant fear is exclusion, it strongly suggests the fundamental need inclusion. Acceptance for who you are, not what you post, isn't being met reliably enough offline. The research title itself forces us to look hard at the support systems we have for young people today.
It's a recognition that belonging itself has become tied up with being visible, with documenting your life.
Yes, performance is intertwined with belonging now.
Wow. Okay, this has been a really focused, intense look at just those few words, FOMO, among teenagers. We've covered the anxiety itself, the vulnerability of that age group, and the bigger cultural implications.
Yeah, we've established it's not just teen drama. It's a real, measurable stressor needing serious attention.
So to wrap up, let's leave you with a final thought to chew on, building directly from that source title. If we're studying the negative impact of FOMO, the fear of missing out.
Then we have to consider the opposite. What about JOMO, the joy of missing out?
Right. JOMO, what would that even mean?
Well, in essence, it's about self-acceptance, isn't it? Valuing your own time, your offline experiences, having that internal sense of validation that doesn't depend on what everyone else is doing or posting.
It's choosing. Presence over performance.
That's a lovely way to put it. Radical, almost.
So what would JOMO look like for a teenager today? Being able to switch off the phone without that gnawing anxiety, feeling genuinely good about experiences that aren't shared online,
Yeah,
prioritizing real connection over just visibility.
exactly. But here's the kicker, the really provocative thought tied to that research title. The very fact that so much formal research has to be dedicated to the fear of missing out.
Yeah.
It strongly suggests that for this generation, growing up on that permanent performance stage, the simple contentment of JOMO, the joy of missing out, it might not just be difficult to achieve. It might feel almost entirely unobtainable right now.
That's quite a thought. The potential cost of always being connected, always visible.
Something to definitely mull over.
Indeed. Thank you for joining us for the deep dive.
My pleasure.
We'll see you next time as we continue diving into the sources that matter.